The Gospel according to Chris Pratt. I actively avoid the big award shows. The Golden Globes, the Emmys, the Tonys, the Grammys, even the Oscars. I've just never been a big fan. The musical acts and comedic bits can be entertaining, but it's not worth slogging through hours of watching self-appointed moral leaders prattle on about how important their work is while they congratulate themselves for mistaking talent for virtue. So imagine my surprise when a viral video from the MTV Movie Awards, of all things, popped up on social media, exemplifying everything modern entertainment culture has come to stand against. Chris Pratt managed to hide a mini sermon in a silly speech to a bunch of kids. Let's take a closer look. While accepting the 2018 MTV Generation Award, Chris Pratt gave a speech that has since gone viral, with most people praising the solid general pieces of advice, and Christians in particular lauding the unapologetically gospel-centered points sprinkled throughout. In this video, we'll go point by point to expound on what the star of both the Jurassic World and Guardians of the Galaxy franchises had to say.
Number 1, breathe.
This advice seems a bit obvious, but the unsustainably low levels of cognitive activity across the country suggest that people just aren't getting enough oxygen to their brains.
Number 2, you have a soul. Be careful with it.
Slipped in right under the radar is an important theological truth. Introducing spiritual matters this way is actually kind of clever, since it happens to be an idea generally shared among pretty much all the faith traditions. Even atheistic worldviews have to, on some level, acknowledge the existence of a non-physical aspect to being. Whether you call it a soul or spirit or mind, it's the part of you that makes you something more than simply a collection of atoms working towards the eventual heat death of the universe. In the Christian understanding, the soul is immortal and will ultimately face judgment, which is probably why Chris jumps into this next point.
Number 3, don't be a turd.
Again, it seems obvious, but the evidence that this is a well-known and mostly followed piece of advice is slim at best. Chris focuses more on the responsibility of power, be it physical or intellectual or something else, but the greater point is universally applicable. Anyone can act immorally. Anyone can be a turd. Some of us do it more often than others, and one day we'll all have to deal with the cosmic consequences of our deeds.
Number 4, when giving a dog medicine, put the medicine in a little piece of hamburger, they won't even know they're eating medicine.
I could try to interpret this as Chris using a metaphor to describe how he was hiding important and sometimes hard to swallow truths inside something more palatable, like a semi-inspirational but comedic award acceptance speech. But that may be a step too far. Instead, I'll just testify from experience that this point is also true. Works with peanut butter too.
Good boy.
Number 5, doesn't matter what it is, earn it.
Given this generation's tendency towards entitlement, this message cannot be stressed or repeated often enough. But more than that, I think Chris is going somewhere different with this. Notice how his example of earning isn't exactly typical. He specifically mentions how good deeds are good for the soul. What exactly are you earning there? Accolades, maybe? Or perhaps virtue points? If there's one thing young people seem to be concerned about these days, it's virtue, or really the perceived virtue associated with being on the right side of history. You can't take a stroll through your social media feeds without tripping over thousands of people rending their clothes at the most recent act of wrongthink, or genuflecting before a viral video of someone speaking truth to power. This generation desperately wants to be seen as good, but can't even get beyond meaningless hashtag activism to do so. The call to earn it is both an indictment on their unwillingness to act and a setup for a larger point that we'll be knocking down a little bit later at the end of the speech. Stay tuned for that.
Number 6, God is real. God loves you. God wants the best for you. Believe that. I do.
I'm not sure whether I was most surprised and delighted by the fact this was said on a stage typically reserved for half-dressed dancers gyrating to the latest hit song by someone I don't care about, or that it was so heartily applauded. But this was a bold declarative statement, affirming the existence of the Creator and declaring aspects of this relationship to humanity. There's no doubt that this was a far braver act than shouting F Trump before an audience full of people who say virtually the same thing on a regular basis.
Number 7, if you have to poop at a party.
If this weren't Chris Pratt, I'd say this was more subterfuge, a drawn-out discussion of bathroom protocols to distract your conscious mind while your heart chews on the idea of a loving God. But since it is Chris Pratt...
Number 8, learn to pray.
Contrary to popular belief, prayer isn't a series of requests made to an imaginary sky genie. Prayer is deliberate communication with God. And while it is often the means by which we share our hopes and desires with the one from whom all blessings flow, its purpose isn't to reshape the world to our preference, but to reshape ourselves according to God's. Finally, we come to the coup de grace. Having established the idea of the soul, affirm the existence of a loving God that wants the best for you, and encourage you to speak to him in order to enrich that soul, Chris drives the final point home with the fact that
nobody is perfect. People are going to tell you you're perfect just the way you are. You're not. You are imperfect. You always will be. But there is a powerful force that designed you that way. And if you're willing to accept that, you will have grace. And grace is a gift. And like the freedom that we enjoy in this country, that grace was paid for with somebody else's blood. Do not forget it.
Remember when Chris talked about earning things and how he used that example about doing good? Check this out. If you've accepted that you have a soul, that God is real, have sought him in prayer, and even in doing good, accepted that you will never be able to earn perfection, the notion of the cross can truly come into focus. Jesus, having paid the price for your imperfection with his blood, offers grace and freedom because of the God that loves you. There's no doubt that Chris Pratt's gospel message here wasn't exactly the most comprehensive or elegant, but it's definitely the best call to Christian discipleship I've heard come out of Hollywood since, well, pretty much ever. For that, he deserves immense credit. Tell me what you think of this video. Do you think Chris Pratt did a good job? What do you think about the current state of the entertainment industry? Discuss in the comments. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more videos on religion, culture, and politics. That's all for today. This is St. John the Philosopher. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in another video.